Okay, so on to the next little bit. Before lunch, we'll have lunch in the next 10 minutes or so, but I'd like to invite Theo Baker to the floor along with Alan, if you wouldn't mind coming up, to give us a bit of insight into their governance journey.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. For those that don't know me in the room, my name's Theo Baker. I'm one of the development officers for Wales Golf, working with sort of 2/3 of the clubs across Wales. And a hot topic, certainly in the last 3 or 4 years, has been the small subject of governance. I think since COVID kicked in, a lot of golf clubs have seen a need to change, reduce from large committees that may be quite ineffective in making long-term strategic decisions to a more streamlined, skills-based board of directors and start planning for the future. Delighted to bring Alan Davis from the Glamorganshire Golf Club with us today. Alan was instrumental in implementing a governance change at that golf club. And for the next 10 or 15 minutes, we're just going to talk through why did they change, what change looked like, and also for sort of any sort of hints and tips that you can pass on to other clubs that I know are looking at this journey. So to get us started, can you give a brief overview of what Glamorganshire was and what the plan was moving it forward?
Yeah, I didn't realise that Russell would be here because Russell was a GM for probably 10 years. So he's definitely got an insight into what I experienced. But I wasn't instrumental in in starting the governance process. I think it's important to remember that the Glamorganshire Golf Club, when this started, was 130 years old. And it did remind me when they asked me to be involved. I think they asked me to be involved because of my business involvement, certainly large business involvement, I think. But anyway, it was approved by the General Committee, which was absolutely a must. The 130 years old is really significant. I remember when I was involved in Welsh rugby, asking someone what was the WR, what was Welsh rugby really like? And this was a well-known previous international in many caps. And he said, you don't want to ask me about that. He said, you want to go up, that's the ramp, the old offices, go up and talk to the committee because they're all living it, the past, that is. So I sort of experienced that. In 1988, the RNA recommended, so we're talking 1988, the RNA recommended that golf clubs should mirror an example golf club in Scotland that had divided the business from the golf. In 1995, just to give you some brief background, there was a circular letter from the RNA to golf clubs that they should really seriously consider this, 1995. That was presented by one of the General Committee at the time in a General Committee meeting in Glamorganshire to the captain, who said, we're not doing that stuff. So that was the first time. 2005, there was a lot of research done by a small group to take the evidence to an EGM, to convince the members. It was voted out because they made the mistake of indicating who might be the chair, and then a group of people came who didn't like this particular person, actually because he chaired a disciplinary meeting, and the person that was found guilty at that disciplinary got 40 members and kicked it out. So, and then in 2015, a group asked me to get involved We did actually circulate the members because the only way we could do it was to invoke an EGM through our constitution, which is 30 members, to sign. We got 250 signatures, and then there was an explosion. Obviously, Russell was GM, or that was the year you got appointed, just after the explosion. There was an explosion, and the committee said, we'll handle this, and they kicked it out. So in 2019, the General Committee said, we need to change the government. So that's number one in the experience. My business background, I'm not telling you that, but I said to this small working party of 5 people, you know, we really need to be clear about what we're trying to do here. First of all, what's the outcome? And the outcome actually was, in simple terms, was to get as many members as possible into a room to vote for the change of governments. And therefore, they had to be engaged, they had to know all the benefits of the change of government, and sort of normal business practice when you're trying to change a 130-year organisation to something more futuristic. But one of the number one things was that the way that the club is structured, like many golf clubs, is the chair of the General Committee is always the captain. They're voted in, but it was always the captain. And the captain has immense responsibilities, and many captains did not have the acumen and so on. So there was a process, and then what happened, I wrote the terms of reference. I'm not sure anybody read them, but it certainly took 9 months for the General Committee to even read them. Russell's smiling because he knows all this, he wrote the minutes. You know, a bit of a mammoth challenge, which through COVID, then you had COVID, and there was a body of opinion with this 5, which was not led by me, who said we can't do this now because it's COVID. And I said, no, we can, because, you know, there's technology. I said, 3 months ago, we ran a world conference. Can you imagine that? I said, a world conference. And we've got another 3 planned, and we're doing it all virtually. So you can do it. But it sort of faded. And then the new General Committee put pressure on me. Well, 3 people did. Actually, unfortunately, one of them was my wife, because she was the lady captain. You've got to pick this up. So I got help from Russell. I got a lot of help from Wales Golf. Zoe was then a sort of junior, weren't you? Not a director. She was our development officer, and luckily I was chairman of championships, which I've managed to survive, thanks Hannah. I became very close to Wales Golf, and I realised that Wales Golf was not the entity that many members had given them a reputation for. It had changed dramatically. So that sort of relationship really enabled me, I was then on my own, by the way, to drive this thing forward, and I was determined to get people in a room to vote yes for the 3 motions. And I like to think that we conjured up things that really worked in an EGM.
You mentioned a lot of resistance to change there, Al. Why were they resistant? What were the main concerns that the existing committee had over changing to a more modern governance structure?
Well, the existing committee didn't. I think, well, generally, I mean, it's turkeys voting for Christmas, isn't it? What we did do was, with Zoe's help, I said, look, it didn't really matter. Unfortunately, I've got this personality. It didn't really matter that people were saying we can't do it in COVID. I did a presentation with all the evidence. There's loads of evidence. I was a member of Newport Golf Club for 10 years before Glamorganshire, where I've been for 22 now. And you know, I spoke to Ray Chilton here, but Russell had been at Newport Golf Club. I'd been a member. I knew what it was like, and I knew what it could be like. So I was fired up and thought, it doesn't really matter whether, because you know, golf clubs, there's cabals in golf clubs, and they can really drive things. And you've got to cut through that with member engagement. But member engagement for people involved in small businesses is pretty simple, really. You just get, you know, the 8 people in a room and you have a chat. It's not like where you've got 800 members. There was a general sort of, why do we need to do this? We've been okay for 130 years, and other people said, we are the Glamorganshire, you know, so
Why change?
past they were living in it. So that was a sort of resistance.
You mentioned member engagement, and I remember from visiting the club during that time, or when we were able to, coming out of COVID, your engagement was not just sort of EGMs, AGMs, but really visual. You had those boards in the club. Could you explain sort of the approach you took with those?
Yeah, once I was on my own, I had this. I still had my wife beating me, but once I was on my own, and the captain was very supportive, and one of the other guys was very supportive in the working group. And of course I had then the licence from the General Committee because they co-opted me. I could get stuck in to this engagement. But we did a survey, and what we did, I did it with one of the members who's you know, sort of arty man. He's sort of digital expert, etc. I said, why don't we take the qualitative results of the survey and the evidence that you've got from all the other golf clubs, because there's so much evidence out there that you can use. So we combined that and we created storyboards. Put them up in the club, not too dissimilar to this, there were about 6 of them. We had the results of the survey, which was the graphical results, but then we had the qualitative things, and with pretty sort of headings that invoked dispute, which is what we wanted to create, because then you get people arguing with each other, and this is all a setup, and of course they get engaged, don't they? So that's how you, anyway. So we had things like, one storyboard was cut in 2 halves. One is how amateurs behave, and the other's how professionals behave. One is people who don't run a business engage, how people who run a business engage, and so on. So we had about 6 of those, and members actually couldn't help to see them. So in a room like this, ours is smaller than this, we had these storyboards set up, so that sort of invoked. And it wasn't very difficult.
They got more people talking about it in the club, got more people interested and engaged, and And did that result in more people sort of attending EGMs, AGMs to contribute towards the final decision?
Well, we didn't, of course, a number of past captains who said we can't do this. Interesting enough, some of those voted the thing out before, but anyway, that's fine. I'm cynical about these things. And then we delayed it, which actually was a really good move, because I realised that I needed to get three people involved, and I asked some of the senior members. I'd only been a member for 20 odd years, they'd been a member for about 50. I said, who are the biggest pains in an EGM? Because Glamorganshire was famous for kicking out EGMs, you know, stopping them. Because of first of all, there was a lawyer that asked really detailed questions, and he knew how to stop an EGM. So he's a bit of a mate, really, so I got him on board. And then there's another guy that is a sort of constitution pain in the backside, and I got him involved, and I said, right, can you please write down all the questions you're going to ask? So they did, and then I said, right, now we'll find the answers. So we prepared the answers. So the outcome was use the member engagement to get people in the room, and then use this as evidence.
And target the troublemakers.
Yeah. Well, just ask the right questions so that people. I think we had a couple of questions actually.
And then maybe to round it off, as I said, there's clubs in the room that are just starting this journey. What would be your sort of maybe top 3 tips for clubs starting their governance journey that they could take away today?
Well, it's, I mean, the whole point of changing governance, first of all, be very clear, because you might not need to. I mean, there are clubs that have changed to, they might trim down the committees, but they've got a business focus anyway. I know Martin, so I'm pretty sure this, I know it has anyway, because the good thing about being chair of championships, I go around all these clubs in Wales, so I ask them questions, so they're focused. I know Newport is business focused, but they've changed. So and I know the result of that. But the key thing is to make sure that you're doing it for the benefit of the members. You know, it's, and a lot of clubs, and I believe ours is like that. They, you know, members are mushrooms really. And you know all those stories. So they're just kept in the dark, and you don't want members involved because they're a nuisance. It's a bit like being a passenger on a BA flight. You know, it's so you've got to change that side, and that's the big very clear. And then once you're clear, this is what we need to do. This is the reasons. Then the biggest thing is engaging members.
Brilliant, thank you. And then to open it up for the next couple of minutes, has anyone got any questions to myself or Alan around governance and change and what change could look like? Everyone's really hungry. Well, personally, Alan, thank you for that discussion there. I think it's really important that we bring clubs, you know, that give real insight into why they changed, what change looked like, and how that can help your clubs moving forward. A key point that Alan mentioned as well is, he mentioned Ian and Ray from Newport. Golf clubs in Wales have been extremely generous in sharing best practice and sharing their time in helping other golf clubs. So please don't be afraid to ask your neighbours to help. Their insight and knowledge and resources are invaluable. So a massive thank you to those that help. Back to you, Zoe.
Yeah. Round of applause.